Hello, my name is Jeffrey Lancer, and this is Group 16's presentation. Our topic is Volkswagen's emissions scandal. Our group members include Robert McConnell, Nicolette Douglas, Brandon Abbott, David Hall, and myself, Jeffrey Lancer.
In September of last year, the EPA issued a notice of violation of the Clean Air Act to Volkswagen Group after it discovered that some of the car makers' diesel engine cars had software installed that would fool an emissions test. Basically, the software was programmed so that whenever the car sensed it was receiving an emissions test, the car would go into a sort of safe mode and reduce its emissions. Once out of testing mode, the car would resume normal operations and produce emissions way over the limit of U.S. emission limits. The problem affected about 500,000 cars in the U.S. and more than 11 million cars worldwide. The estimated total cost of the scandal for VW is between $18 and $21 billion. I think there are two important questions to ask about this scandal. The first is, how did VW get itself into this mess? And the second is, how do they get themselves out of it? VW's concern for production outweighed any legal or ethical concerns when top management decided to install this cheating software instead of using more expensive car components that would actually reduce emissions. These types of dysfunctional behaviors may save money in the short term, but eventually hurt the company when the truth comes to light. The decision to implement the cheating software was clearly driven by the desire to maximize profits at the expense of everything else. The second, and I think more important question to ask about the scandal is, how is VW going to recover? They have already set aside billions in order to pay fines and recall cars, but they also need to rebrand themselves and get away from the perception many people have of them. This will take a lot of creativity in business decisions. VW has already stopped all diesel-powered car production in the U.S., and they have also fired several top executives. I think the biggest step VW has taken to change people's perceptions is to announce its plans to launch 30 all-electric vehicle models by 2025 and rebrand themselves as a leader in green energy for vehicles. This is exactly the sort of bold and creative business plan that VW needs in order to leave this scandal behind and emerge once again as a world leader in car manufacturing.
Our group discussion is on the recent Volkswagen Audi emissions Dieselgate announcement. This breaking story is about the top executives with global giant automaker Volkswagen making damaging decisions that will have negative impacts on their customers, their dealers, and the environment. I will discuss two communication points that relate to vertical communication and accurate information. Let's begin with the communication of accurate information. As reported in a recent article, July 15th, from Consumer Reports, Volkswagen has admitted to circumventing the emission control system in over 500,000 diesel-powered vehicles sold in the U.S. since 2008. The reality of Dieselgate was exposed in September and November 2015 when the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, issued a notice of violation to Volkswagen and Audi that uncovered that diesel engines emit 40 times more pollutants than legally acceptable as regulated by the Clean Air Act. The EPA discovery of accurate information exposed the reality of a major vehicle problem. Now we'll discuss the corporate communication VW and Audi and the vertical communication implemented at the dealership level. I met with Albin Kronowski, the service manager for a large Volkswagen Audi dealer in South Carolina, about this massive Dieselgate issue and the communication framework from external and internal environments. Albin comments, and I quote, "We were not provided nor informed of any communication notice from Volkswagen, Audi corporate, or field management that this emission recall was forthcoming. The night the news broke through the major networks, the next day, our dealership was bombarded with vehicle owners in our service department. A total breakdown of communication between Volkswagen, Audi corporate management to the dealer." End of quote. Vertical communication skills like consistency in message, explanation, and feedback were immediately enacted between Mr. White, the dealership owner, Albin, the service manager, and his service advisors. These vertical communication skills allowed a consistent message of how they would address the concerns and options to their diesel vehicle customers. In summary, from the accurate information, the EPA findings and the massive bad press has caused a 25% sales decline in this dealership's business since the announcement. Thankfully, the vertical communication skills enacted between the owner, managers, and service advisors has provided a clear path of understanding and feedback for their valued customers.
After the scandal was outed to the public, Winterkorn's resignation from his position makes me believe that he was aware of the issue. However, the company denied that he was informed. When someone of great power resigns during a scandal, it shows guilt and that the CEO suffered cognitive dissonance about fixing the emissions. His concern for production of the vehicle made others think that ignoring the issue and making a profit was more important than the quality of the environment. Instead of taking $20 million to fix the issue, it will now cost the company an estimate of over $17 billion to recover from the scandal. Based on Winterkorn's actions during the scandal, showed that he was not a true transformational leader. A transformational leader would not have resigned from their position when their business takes a downturn. Instead, they would have admitted their wrongs of their risky behavior and developed a new way to fix the issue instead of denying it for over a year. The EPA had to show all clear evidence that indicated they used a device to fool regulatory testing before they could confess. Since September of 2015, the company has hired a new CEO named Matthias Mueller in hopes that his creativity will lead Volkswagen into a new direction and become a true transformational leader.
We can relate concern for production and creativity to this scenario. Specifically, I'll be discussing initiating structure behavior and impression management. Volkswagen installed software that altered the way its engines performed during emissions testing. The software was able to detect when a vehicle was being tested as opposed to actually being driven on the road, and it adjusted the performance accordingly. This resulted in real-world emissions being 40 times greater than the EPA testing indicated, and resulted in a crisis for Volkswagen as a company. In order for the software to be installed on thousands of vehicles, there had to be a certain chain of command and authority that allowed managers to pressure subordinates into creating and implementing the software. Initiating structure behavior is a type of leadership behavior first suggested in the Ohio State studies. In initiating structure behavior, the manager clearly defines their authority, the chain of command, and what is expected of their subordinates. The Volkswagen managers involved in this scandal likely exhibited this type of leadership behavior, as opposed to consideration behavior, in which the manager establishes a warm and supportive climate. Initiating structure behavior is heavily associated with a manager's concern for production and the authority compliance leadership style on the management grid. In the wake of the scandal, Volkswagen's American CEO, Michael Horn, practiced a form of political behavior called impression management, which is a direct effort by someone to enhance their image in the eyes of others. In an interview, he stated that, quote, Volkswagen really screwed up, unquote, and that he was disappointed in the parties involved. In making this statement, he was attempting to distance himself from the scandal, thereby making himself look better. Thank you.
Volkswagen has entered into many negotiations with many different parties and recently has reached a settlement in the United States. Volkswagen has also set aside about 18 million euros to cover all the costs of this scandal. They have agreed to buy back or fix any of the affected vehicles by December 2018. Details of this settlement include Volkswagen setting aside $10 billion to buy back any of the 475,000 Volkswagens that were affected in the United States. While it seems like a large number of vehicles, the U.S. is home to only about 10% of the total Volkswagen vehicles that were included in the scandal, as there are 8.5 million Volkswagens in Europe with the same emission system malfunction. Because of this scandal, Volkswagen's business plan has pivoted, and they are broadening their conscientiousness in order to regain the public's trust. The goal for Volkswagen is to create an electrical vehicle line. These electrical vehicles will hopefully be able to compete with the top electric and hybrid vehicles on the market now, such as all Teslas, the Nissan Leaf, Prius, etc. The public will more than likely see Volkswagen in a good light once it nears the reveal of the new electric vehicles. Volkswagen's stock price will jump back up and all should be well and good again. But this is a major deterrent and a huge speed bump for Volkswagen as they look to be a dominant car company.